Let's get going. I just want to say a big thank you to begin with for having me here today. It's a pleasure to work with Adrian, Chris, and the team at Ecclesiastical, and it's an absolute privilege to have the opportunity to chat with you about my passion, which is helping insurance professionals grow and be the best they can be in their roles. So we've only got 60 minutes together, so I do need to be pretty frank. I'm not going to turn you into world-beating coaches today, but I will be clear on why I think now is the ideal time to focus on our people development, the benefits of doing it, and I'll discuss some of the skills and the approach that's needed for this. And I've got 4 key messages for you to take away. And I've also created some material that you can use to and refer to after the webinar. And there will be an article on the Ecclesiastical as well that will delve deeper into one of the tools that you can use to help develop your people. Now, I was fortunate enough to work at an insurance company that heavily invested in my development, and they particularly invested in my soft skills and my approach to sales and my conversational skills. And for the last 8 years, I've been trying to pass that investment back on to underwriters and brokers that I've been working with. I think this might be difficult to hear, but during that time, I have been continually surprised at how little we do invest in our teams in this industry, especially in their soft skills and in the art of conversation. And I believe now our people need this more than ever. And that's what I wanted to focus on today in the webinar. So let's begin. Because insurance for me has always been a people business. I think the experience that our customers have is shaped by their conversations with our teams. And even when technology and process goes wrong, our people can make it right. Our people win and retain clients for us. And for example, it's no good having access to market leading products if our teams can't effectively match or articulate the benefits of those products to our customers' needs and wants. And if you want to cross-sell more or prospect more, what do? Do you get a brand new CRM system or set up a new process on a spreadsheet? And I think they're both nice to have, but I'll bet a huge bet that you'll get far better results by simply coaching your teams to ask better questions, by working with them to be more curious about your clients' wants and needs, and helping them have the confidence to overcome any objections from the client. And I think there's a real opportunity to stand out right now and stand out from your competitors by ensuring your people are the best they can be on every call, with every client, and in every meeting. So why do I think that opportunity exists right now? And I didn't get too many responses to the poll, but I know that when I've been talking to a lot of brokers over the last few years, one of the things we've been doing is firefighting. And I think that's 100% understandable. It's been a tough few years. And on the screen are some of the challenges that brokers have shared with me that they faced since the start of the pandemic. And I'm not going to go on about the pandemic because I'm sure, like me, you want to move on. But I do think we need to recognize that the pandemic is the cause of many of the reasons we've been firefighting. And I want to change how we can view these challenges. I believe these challenges are actually an opportunity for the industry, but especially for specialist brokers, where our clients rely on our team's expertise and advice. And I think people development now can make a massive difference because of the challenges on this slide. So, for example, if we can help our people to perform at their best, they will meet their clients' higher expectations. If we can build their skills and knowledge, we can ensure they provide confident solutions and take advantage of clients' increased curiosity, because engaged clients normally lead to the will for them to want to work with us. Developing sales and conversational skills will help them overcome hard market premium objections. And I think really importantly, having high quality sales skills and service conversations with our clients is the perfect antidote to online and direct providers. I want to touch on hybrid working as well, because it's here to stay in one form or another. And that means that our best people can be poached by brokers who are now geographically far away. And the good news is the more you develop your people, the higher their engagement is with you and the less likely they are to leave. I do appreciate that developing our people has got harder because of the pandemic, because we've been split off in lots of different locations. But if you've struggled to do it, then it also means your competitors have struggled to do it. So getting it right now could lead to a competitive advantage. So I've got two key messages coming up now, and they summarize why I think we should develop our people, and two, where I think we should focus to develop our people and get the biggest benefits. And the first one is something called the common denominator of success. And this was coined by Albert Ian Gray in 1940. And he was a life insurance salesman at the time in the US. And the concept is really simple. He discovered that successful people and companies make a habit of doing the things that others don't like or don't enjoy doing. A bit of a challenge for you here now. What are the activities in your role that you dislike the most? And if you want, please feel free to share them in the chat. Chris, what are your activities in your role that you really don't enjoy doing?
I'm fortunate in that there's not a lot to dislike about the job that I do, but as you kindly gave me time to prepare, I was able to think about it a little bit more. I think the monthly report that I have to produce is probably the thing I like least, because I like to look forward rather than looking back. But the process of doing the monthly report also means I have to set the priorities, or sort of write down what the priorities are for the month ahead. So there's a positive in doing that activity.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I think when we look at the activities that we just don't necessarily enjoy doing, they're often the activities that ultimately drive our success in the long term. So if you think of the things that you put off or just don't like doing, make a priority of them, make a habit of them, and you'll start to reap the rewards. So this concept is really relevant in sales and for sales team, but also really important for developing our people, because when when we're investing time and money in our teams, it's often the first thing that drops off when things get tough, because it's time consuming. There's loads of other urgent things to do, and that's totally understandable. But successful managers and leaders, they ultimately make a habit of developing their people. And my second takeaway today is to make conversation as important as regulation in your business. And as I mentioned at the beginning, investment in conversational skills and soft skills, I think, is vital. And often this investment happens, but it's confused with compliance or regulatory reviews of files. And I think conversational skills investment is one way of putting clear blue water between ourselves and our competitors, because it's the conversations that will help us stand out and ultimately meet our clients' needs and secure the business. So let's start to look at how best to develop our people. And I've got another poll coming up now. So in the chat, please share which methods on the screen do you mainly use to develop your people. And again, while we're getting some answers, Chris, could you share what the approach at Ecclesiastical is for us, please?
Yeah, sure. We have a general insurance academy, and within every role within the business, there's a set of competencies that are aligned to every role. Every individual then self-assesses themselves against those competencies, and then they sit down with their line manager to kind of validate and check that there's a common sort of view. And if there is, that's great. If there's not, then they talk about those variances, and invariably within the competency framework, there's some stretch. So we then have training interventions available for individuals in terms of, how they can achieve those competencies or improve against those competencies.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'm seeing loads of responses coming through in the chat now, which is really, really great. So I'm seeing quite a lot on training and mentoring, some on coaching, which is great. Also some on leadership style, which is fantastic. So thank you guys for sharing all of that. Let's now take a look at the ways that we can develop and invest in our people. And we'll start with the options from the previous slide. So let's start with training and mentoring, which some of you mentioned that you do. And we've all been on training courses, we've all been trained. We've had good and bad experiences on training courses. Training is a fundamental way of increasing our knowledge and our skills. But there's less clarity in what mentoring is really. For many, it's exposure to a more experienced individual within your organization. It's associated with career progression, but it is, in my experience, often confused with coaching, because many coaches are actually mentoring instead. So what I mean by that is that they're sharing their experience with the person that they're working with. Often the mentor is the subject matter expert. And when you're really good at something, it's very difficult not to help by just sharing your knowledge. And this logic applies to being the leader of a team as well, because often the leaders of our teams are the most experienced or technical person on the team, and you act as a mentor to your team. So both training and mentoring fall within the category of telling somebody what to do, how to do it, how you would have done it. And I'm telling now, for example. Peer-to-peer support, on the other hand, is more likely to be you showing somebody what to do. And that could be at your desk or on a call. And peer-to-peer support, I think, in my opinion anyway, is absolutely vital to the development of our teams and our people. And it's the bedrock of how our people learn on the job. One of the challenges of peer-to-peer was that in the pandemic, it was wiped out overnight when we all had to work from home. So I really think we should try and find a way to reignite peer-to-peer development. Now we're back in the office, but also find a way to make it work in a hybrid environment. Now, the most holistic way of developing your people is through a leadership style. And I know some of you again mentioned this in the chat, which is great. And if you've ever been frustrated by how dependent your team is on you, or if you wish they would take more responsibility, especially for their own development, then the rest of this webinar is definitely for you, because unfortunately we have to look at our own leadership style if we want to solve that problem. And adopting a coaching style is the way to do it. And as we'll see later, coaching encourages responsibility and ownership within our teams. Coaching is our final and most effective way of developing our people, because coaching ensures that the person you're coaching discovers and experiences new skills, that they try new ways to resolve their challenges, and that they learn it's okay to fail and try again. And it's this distinction from the other development methods that's really significant for us when deciding what's the best way to develop our people. Because if we're investing significant sums of money and time in developing our people, we've got to make sure it's worth it. So let's find out why coaching is the most effective option. So this slide is showing us something really simple, but really very powerful. Along the bottom of the chart, you've got the three categories of development that I just discussed. So tell, show, and discover. And up the left-hand side of the chart, you've got how much someone can remember following a training intervention or a peer-to-peer intervention 3 months after that intervention. So how much recall they have. And the chart uses something called adult learning theory. But very simply, all we need to understand from that is that as we get older, we shift our learning needs from being taught to being more independent and being self-directed. So in other words, we want to find out and discover for ourselves. And when we apply this to how we develop our people in insurance, we can start to see why it really matters. Because training, which is firmly in the bracket of telling, has a recall value of only 10% after 3 months, which is pretty shocking when you think about how much time we invest in training. Okay? And mentoring, which is still in the tell bracket, and it's quite advice-driven, also has quite a low recall value. Peer-to-peer is higher at 32% because here people are being told and being shown what to do. So their memory of what happened increases. But coaching is where the real benefits lie. So when we're coached, our recall jumps to 62%. And I think for me, this is the crucial bit. The size of the bubbles show us how much time and money is invested in each development type. So we can see that training and peer-to-peer are the most commonly used investment type, with coaching where not being widely used at all. And it's especially not used with our frontline teams who are having the conversations with our customers. So in summary, we invest quite heavily in training, which is the least effective way, and we invest the least in coaching, which is the most effective way. I do want to point out with peer-to-peer that it is a really effective development tool, as I said. And I think what happens with peer-to-peer is that people go off and they often experiment and find their own way of doing stuff after they've been shown. So you can expect peer-to-peer development to have a higher recall value. And one way to improve peer-to-peer even more is to invest in the coaching skills of people who are giving that. So that will help them help people learn more effectively. So using this knowledge, here's my third key takeaway from today. I recommend focusing your people development in the following 3 ways. So train and coach together. So training is absolutely essential, but if you're going to train, look to coach your people after so they can embed that knowledge and their skills after. Peer-to-peer is really powerful, so find a way to make it happen in your business and give the people who are doing it some coaching skills. And finally, build a coaching culture within your team or your organization. And today I'm going to try and set you off on that path to building that culture. So we've established that coaching is our most effective development tool. So now I'm going to start looking at coaching in more detail. I'm going to start with the benefits of coaching, the way it adds value to you, your teams, and your company. Just have a quick drink, sorry. So firstly, coaching drives results. And it drives results for individuals, for teams, and for the overall business. And we'll look at that in more detail shortly. But for now, we need to know that coaching focuses on the performance or the behaviors of our people. So it looks at what our people are doing, not the results they are getting. Coaching raises awareness of what we do or what we don't do, and then it builds responsibility in us to do something about it. And I'll look at this in more detail later. The second benefit I want to pick out is that it creates time for managers and leaders of teams. And I think this benefit is underappreciated because actually one of the blockers to coaching is the feeling that it takes large initial investment up front. And that's understandable. But the reality is coaching can actually release time by doing the following 3 things. It improves the performance of the team. It cultivates responsibility and ownership within the team. And it can improve the quality of work. So allowing you, the leader, to focus on other things. The third benefit I want to pick out is that it really connects and delivers for your customers. So coaching can connect you to your customers. So for example, in a coaching session, your team can share their conversations they have with their customers. You can even listen to calls as part of your coaching approach. And by listening to customer calls, you'll learn more about your customers, their needs, and it will help you to meet those needs. You can also find out business opportunities and operational improvement opportunities through listening to those calls. And finally, coaching will delight your people. And I know sometimes it may not seem like it, but our people do want to be developed. Coaching helps your team feel supported and trusted to try new things. And this can improve employee engagement and therefore retention. Coaching conversations provide a pathway to new career opportunities, and they also help you identify new leaders. And crucially, coaching helps with well-being. 95% of clients of the International Coaching Federation reported an increase in their well-being through being coached. So as you can see on the slide, there's loads of benefits associated with coaching, and many of them are interconnected. But let's take a closer look at the first benefit, namely that it helps drive results for us. And coaching drives results by unlocking potential within your people. So before we get into how it does this, let's see if you can answer the question on the slide for me, please. So what do you think the average amount of their full potential an individual brings to work? So what's the average amount of their full potential that an individual brings to work? And so obviously their full potential is 100%. What's their average amount? And as I do that, I'll explain why I'm asking this question, because a fundamental concept of coaching is that we should see people in terms of the potential they have, not their past performance. And the biggest blocker to realizing our full potential is usually fear of failure or lack of confidence. And this is really true for myself, and it's definitely true with the brokers and the underwriters I've worked with over the years. And the goal of you as a coach is to build self-belief and confidence within the people you're working with. And by doing that, you release potential. And coaching should help you try and overcome new things and overcome your fear of failure. Okay, so we've got loads of answers in the chat. Chris, what answers are you seeing in the chat?
There's quite a range, isn't there? But there's a few at 60, a few at 70, one as high as 75. We've got one as low as 40 as well. But yeah, quite a few positive scores there.
What's your answer, Chris? What do you think?
Well, I've read ahead.
Okay.
So I'd be cheating.
Okay, I won't let you cheat. Well, someone did get it spot on. The answer actually is 40%, which feels really low, doesn't it? Okay, so how did this figure get established? Well, to produce the figure, there was delegates on a number of courses were asked this same question about themselves. And as we've seen, there's a range of answers, but the actual average that was given was 40%. So why only 40%? Well, they gave three common responses. They said that they do some things really well outside of the workplace. So in other words, they perform better outside of work. That their performance during a crisis is better than when they're not in a crisis. And I think we saw that at the beginning of the pandemic. Or they just said they know they could do more. And they cited blockers to having their full potentials, again, explaining why it was only 40%. And these blockers were a lack of opportunity or encouragement within their company, their boss and their boss's approach, or a lack of self-belief. And coaching can address all three of these things, and that's how it helps release potential. So let's just see how releasing potential in a team can drive results. So I'm going to put an example on the slide and I'm going to step through it. And this could be any business that earns fees or revenues through their activities. So I'd like you to imagine you're a manager of a team of 10. And as we know now, each person in that team has an average potential of 40% each. So let's just say 1% potential is the equivalent to £1,500 worth of revenue. So therefore, your average team member in the team generates £60,000 a year, and that's £600,000 for the whole team. And over 5 years, that's £3 million, as long as my maths is right there. So I'm not factoring in any salary costs or recruitment costs or other loaded costs in this. So after 1 year of being their leader, you've got a decision to make, and you've got to increase the revenue of the team. So you've got the following choices. You can do nothing and hope for the best. You can increase the team size by 1. You can adopt a coaching culture and ensure that each member of the team is coached. Or you can, in fact, reduce the team by 1 in size because someone leaves. And instead of employing someone else, you can bring in a coach to work with that team. So let's look what happens in each scenario. If you do nothing, there's going to be no increase in potential in the team. So over the 5 years, you're going to make the £3 million that we discussed in fees. So there's no growth in that option. If you add an extra team member to the team, you're still not going to increase potential in the team. But because you've now got 11 people, you're going to earn more revenue. Now, it's going to take time for that one person to get up to speed to even reach the 40%. So I've worked that out at adding about another 210,000 of fees over the remaining 4 years. So that's 7% growth. If you develop and coach your team, so this could be done by the team leader, or it could be done by an internal coach or even an external coach, you start to release potential in the team. And I think it's reasonable to suggest that you could release just 5% potential per team member per year over the remaining 4 years. And if you do that, you'll grow the team by 25%. You add an extra £750,000 worth of revenue to the team. And the final option is replacing a leaver with a coach. And this feels counterintuitive because you're reducing the team size. But as in the previous example, you're releasing potential. But we've only got 9 people, so we'll only release 435,000 this time. But that's still 15% growth. So what you can see here is the power of unlocking potential in your team. And in real life, I appreciate it's not as cut and dry as this, but the power is there if you want to harness it. So next time you have a vacancy, have a think and a consideration as to what might be the best way to fill it. So now we understand the power of coaching. We need to now work out exactly what coaching is. And that's what we're going to do on the next slide. So this picture illustrates how coaching should feel for both the coach and the person being coached. It's the feeling of being supported, but also being challenged. And there are loads of ways to define or describe coaching. And previously, we just looked at potential. Potential is how Sir John Whitmore describes coaching in his book, Coaching for Performance. And according to Whitmore, coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their performance. Performance is really important to us because increasing performance in our team gives us the best chances of delivering for our clients and driving our results. So what's performance in insurance? Well, examples are answering a client's question, closing a sales conversation, resolving an objection from a client, for example, the premium's too high, or just having the knowledge about a particular insurance topic or issue, such as flood or underinsurance. And with each of these performance examples, there could be something that gets in the way of a person's potential to perform at their best. So in other words, a barrier that stops them from performing. And that's what coaching does. It helps reduce the barriers to performance. And if we look at the examples that I've just described, we can start to see how this could work in practice. So in a coaching session, you could establish that someone in your team doesn't have the knowledge required to answer a client's question about underinsurance. So coaching will raise the awareness of this with the individual, and then it ensures they take responsibility to do something about that lack of knowledge, because it's the lack of knowledge that's the barrier in this example. Similarly, if performance is being affected by a client not having the skill, an individual not having the skill to resolve a client's objection, coaching again can raise this awareness by you giving some observational feedback. And then you can establish that training is the solution to this, and then you can embed those new skills with further coaching and further observations. So in both examples, performance is enhanced, and the outcome is a better experience for the customer, and in example 2, hopefully a closed sale for us. But there's also secondary benefits, because satisfied customers will generate referrals, and a customer who truly understands why they're now paying more than they might have wanted to is less likely to cancel in the future. Finally, coaching is a way of managing and leading others. And Simon Sinek puts this very eloquently in the quote on the slide. But leading by coaching is a skill, and we're an industry of problem solvers, not coaches, meaning we tend to give advice and mentor. So we're very good at telling and doing, but not so much at coaching. So we need to develop our skills to be able to coach effectively. So if lack of skills is one of the obstacles to coaching, let's have a look at what the others are as well. And I've got another opportunity for you to get involved in the chat here. Which of these obstacles do you see as the biggest ones to develop your people? So is it the apathy of your team or even your own apathy, the skills of coaching. Is it technology that gets in the way? So this could be challenges of the last few years. Or is it time? And if you want to, you can include cost in here as well. So while you're answering these, I can see some answers starting to come through. Let me give you some background to the slide, because developing our people can feel like this picture. Yeah, it can feel like pushing a big boulder up a mountain. And of course, if you get that boulder to the top, then the benefits start to flow as the boulder rolls down the other side. So let's have a look at some of the answers. Chris, what are you seeing in the answers?
A combination: apathy, time, apathy and time, skills and time. Time is definitely appearing quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wondered whether or not we might see something in there about kind of the virtual nature of how we've been working for the last couple of years, how that might have played a part, because certainly as we look to return to our offices, kind of collaboration and that coaching is kind of one of the things that we're hoping to sort of make more use of.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I think I was surprised. I ran a poll on LinkedIn, and I'm seeing the same as what we saw in the chat here, which was apathy was 36%, time 50% of responses, skills 11%, but nothing for technology, which is really encouraging, because it means that we should have that ethos to go ahead and make it happen there. So yeah, absolutely, we're seeing some great responses there, and I do totally understand on time. I think one of the reasons that actually coaching and developing our people can feel like this is not actually in the poll. It's actually mindset, and it's having the right culture or mindset to develop people. And in fact, mindset is the mountain that the boulder is sitting on. And I think this is one of those things that might be difficult to hear, but actually overcoming the blockers of apathy, time, skills, and even technology are really dependent on having the right mindset. Because apathy will reduce when you've got the right culture. So if you've got a leader who genuinely focuses on their teams and their development, then their team will realize that coaching will help them no matter what their own individual goals are. Coaching skills can be developed, and even simple step changes in coaching skills can make a huge difference. And time, as we've seen, is the most common blocker. And I'm afraid time is actually a pure mindset issue. My first key message from today was to make a habit of doing the things the others don't like or find hard or don't want to do. Well, coaching and peer-to-peer development are the classic examples of these activities, because there always will be workflow, there always will be issues to look at, but coaching opportunities will disappear forever if they're not taken. So changing your mindset towards people development and coaching will mean you find a way to resolve your other obstacles. So what is the right mindset? And I want to introduce you today to the care mindset, which is something I've developed specifically for the insurance industry. And the ability and the will to coach is inherent within this mindset. And I developed it because insurance is an industry built on trust. And we all know that. The trust that our clients place in us, the trust we place in insurers, the trust to pay a claim. And trust is a really difficult notion to put into words. But when we think about it, the people we trust the most are often the people that care for us the most. So I really love this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, because it sums up why I believe adopting a care mindset will help you develop your people, and it will give them the skills to build trust with their clients, and having that trusting relationship will drive your results. So here is the care mindset, and it's my fourth key message, and it's very simply to be and help others to be curious, to be aware, to be responsible, and to be effective. And the mindset can be used throughout the whole industry, from sales to claims to service, but it especially applies to leadership and people development. And I'm using this mindset because the skills required to coach are embedded within the mindset. So let's use it to look at those skills now on the next slide. So if you want to develop your own coaching capabilities, I hope that this will be a fantastic guide for you to use, but also you can use it to identify natural coaches that already exist within your business. So I'm only going to mention some parts of the mindset, the ones that are relevant to coaching, and they will be in bold, but there will also be a takeaway that supports the webinar that discusses these skills in more detail for you to use after. So firstly, being curious and helping others to be curious. So curiosity is the very essence of coaching. Being curious means observing and watching your people. And if we look at sports for inspiration, this is exactly what sports coaches do. They're always watching the performance and the behaviors of their team and then looking to help them improve those behaviors. And your observations can be used to start your coaching conversations. A good example is listening or observing a conversation between a team member and a client. It allows you to identify the performance barriers that we've mentioned previously. And then you and the coachee can discuss this and decide if it's something that you want to address. Asking great questions are the glue that holds coaching conversations together. Questions allow you to help others discover and explore what's important to them. It allows you to help them find out what the barriers are and what they want to do about it. Importantly, asking questions helps to stop you from giving advice, and it makes your coachee think about the situation, which in turn then raises their awareness and their responsibility. So just on questions, they should always be open questions, and they should always be considered, and you don't want the conversation to feel like an interrogation or to feel like you're giving criticism. And I really recommend getting some training on asking great questions, because it can kickstart your coaching conversations and your coaching culture. As I said, being curious helps you to raise awareness in others, and that's the second of the care qualities. And to be aware, you've got to listen. And a key skill of coaching is the ability to listen to what our coachee is saying. And I think if we're honest, listening is a skill that we hardly ever have any opportunity to improve. It's ridiculously difficult to master, and our attention is constantly being hijacked by many things around us. But great coaches are great listeners. And like questioning, if you want to get better at listening, then you've got to practice. So I recommend using everyday conversations just to see how much information you can get by asking great questions, and then see how much information you can remember by listening to that conversation. So a good example is a coffee machine conversation. Just use it to practice those two key skills. Finally, our awareness of something that we do or don't do is only increased when someone gives us feedback on it. And as I'm sure you all know, giving feedback that doesn't feel like criticism is a real skill. And a good way of avoiding that is, again, by using actual conversations between your teams and their clients. Because instead of telling your team what you observed, you can use your questioning skills to see what they make of that conversation, which then raises their awareness of that situation. And once your coachee is aware of the coaching topic, you've then got to build responsibility in them to take action. So a great way of doing this is to get your coachee to come up with their own actions. Because if you give advice and that advice doesn't work, then they will blame you, and it's your fault as the coach and your responsibility. Trust is vital to coaching. So remember, coaching is about letting our people explore and discover new ways of doing things. So letting them make mistakes on the way is part of building trust, and that letting those mistakes be okay. You can always help them discover the right way of doing things in a later coaching session when they come up with that idea. For your part, you've got to build your responsibility by committing to their development. And you can do this by checking in with them to see how things are progressing, and never cancelling a coaching session, no matter how hard that can be. And the final part of the care mindset is being effective as a coach. And a fantastic way to coach is to use the GROW model. And I'm going to introduce you to the GROW model now. So GROW is a tried and tested model that's used by coaches throughout the world, and it's particularly useful when coaching to improve performance. It was developed by Max Lamberg, Graham Alexander, Sir John Whitmore, and Alan Fine. And central to GROW are the core concepts of awareness and responsibility, as we just discussed. There are 4 stages to the GROW model. In the first stage, you're helping your coachee decide what they want to achieve. So what's their goal? And you do this by asking questions such as, what challenges do you have? Or what's most important to you? And you need to help your team member choose a goal that will benefit them the most. So this is where your questioning and your listening skills come in again. So you can ask questions such as, how important is that goal to you? What other goal could bring you more benefit? And that will help them choose the right goal. Also, as I've previously said, you can bring in an observation that will help establish that as a platform for the right goal. Once you've established a goal, then you start asking about what's happening now. So what's the reality? In other words, what are the barriers to you achieving your goal? And once you've established the reality, you then help the coachee discover what they could do about it. So i.e., how do you resolve those barriers? And in this stage of the conversation, you must ensure the coachee comes up with several options. And again, asking questions is the skill that's really needed here. So questions to use here could be along the lines of, what else could you do in this situation? How useful will that option be? Who else could help you? And what did they do about it? Once you've established the options, the coachee must then pick an option to implement. And I recommend just one option for them to focus on. And this is the will stage. What will they do and when will they commit to doing it? And you can see throughout the GROW model, awareness and responsibility is constantly being raised and established. And obviously the GROW model is circular, because once one goal is achieved, you can then move on to the next. And performance is enhanced at every cycle. So obviously I've only given a taster of GROW today, but I recommend reading Coaching for Performance by Sir John Whitmore, which will really help you further your GROW understanding and the skills involved in it. And you can also bring in an experienced coach or trainer to help you enhance your coaching capabilities. But really, practice is crucial to making GROW effective. And the good news is, as we'll see on the next slide, is there are loads of opportunities to have GROW coaching conversations. So coaching doesn't need to be done in an isolated room. Of course, private conversations must be held privately. And if you need a room, then book them in advance, weeks or months in advance, and make a public commitment to having these conversations with your team, because this builds your accountability to then deliver on that promise. I think, as we saw in some of the responses, coaching is really effective over video call. And also, peer-to-peer development can be facilitated by technology, with peer-to-peer buddies sharing screens to assist each other if they're working in separate locations. Something that I call drive-by coaching is also very effective, because coaching doesn't have to be 45 or 60 minutes long. A GROW conversation can happen in 5 minutes at a desk, allowing you to check in on your team members' progress towards their goal. And by doing this, you're also confirming your and your coachee's responsibility. And I also really want to recommend team coaching, because it's really powerful. It can take a while to get the right culture within the team, and because some people might be afraid of sharing what they do with others. But if you can do it, then it can really accelerate development throughout the whole team, because you can share ideas and best practice, and you can still have GROW conversations within the team. So what should you coach? Well, pretty much everything. Okay, I'll put some examples on the screen, but there are so many, from technical knowledge through to career progression, to delivering on a personal project, to just helping have better client conversations. But ultimately, you must focus on what's important to the team or the individual being coached. So for example, if they've recently had training, then coach them on embedding those new skills. So what do we do now? Well, I'm going to finish with a brief overview of what you might like to do to kickstart your people development. And I've separated this into quick wins, immediate actions, or longer term actions. And both of these will be available as a takeaway for you again. So to begin with, just get great at observing your team, because this gives you the power to raise their awareness and to help them with the support that they need. Ask your people what they think they need, and then prioritize that development. Prioritize the development that you think will result in the greatest benefit. You can also pick off some low-hanging fruit. You might find out that there are simple changes that you can make that will make a big difference. So this could be a technical knowledge improvement, or even just using a client name in a call more often. If you can, use cool technology. Phone conversations are solid gold opportunities. And I would ask you to do whatever you can to listen to and record calls, because you get lots of people development opportunities from them. You'll also get business development opportunities. And listening to calls is a great team coaching opportunity as well. Asking great questions and listening are absolutely the key to unlocking the care mindset, to coaching, and to peer development, peer-to-peer development. Grow conversations. So using grow conversations is a fantastic way to start your coaching culture. And if you do have gaps in your coaching skills, you can bring in external coaches to fill those gaps in the short term. Make peer-to-peer a priority. So use it to share experience, skills, and knowledge, and share success stories. So if you are coaching someone and they have a fantastic result, whatever that result may be, share it with others, because that will attract others to get involved. Longer term investment, adopt the care mindset. It's a great way of kickstarting your development culture. Equip your leaders with coaching skills and mindsets. So instead of bringing in external coaches to actually do the coaching, bring trainers and coaches in to grow the coaching skills within your business. Coach influential individuals within your company, because they will then encourage others to want to coach or get involved in coaching. This next one builds on your call listening. If you have got call listening capabilities or call recording capabilities, then decide what a good conversation with a client looks like. Okay, and then create conversational standards and coach to these standards. So for example, your standards could be building rapport with a client, understanding their needs, explaining the value of the product, or even just asking for the business. So you can use your calls that you record to coach to these standards. Use team coaching to accelerate development. As I said, it's a really good way of fast tracking lots of people at the same time. And finally, reward leaders who develop their people by making people development part of their own performance metrics. So there we go. We've covered off a lot today. I think I'm just on time. So you'll have access to material to look at after the webinar. And I hope the material and I hope today's session will help you develop your people, deliver for your customers, and drive your results. And I'd be delighted to take any questions that you have.